Hello, welcome inside the Hera Press Box. Welcome to Alyssa's biggest night of the podcast so far. She makes her mock draft debut. We'll go over the NWSL mock drafts, a couple of our thoughts on that, and that'll be the main thing that we talk about in tonight's episode as that comes up on Thursday. There are a couple other things that we might as well go ahead and get out of the way first. Talk about those real quick.
Yeah.
One, the Australian Open has begun, and we've already seen Sloane Stephens make her exit.
Yep.
She was upset. Any predictions in general? Thoughts so far? Going forward.
As far as predictions, I'm not sure yet. I'd like Wozniacki to win it. That's not necessarily a prediction, more or less me just wanting her to win.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't necessarily expecting Sloane to go out in the first round, but she hadn't been playing well after her win at the U.S. Open. So surprising for sure, but the way that she's kind of been playing up until this point hasn't been anything extraordinary. So not that it was expected, but not as big of a shock as maybe past champions losing in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And I guess, I didn't expect her to win the whole thing, Sloane. And
Right.
Not shocked that she was upset. First round is a different story. And we've heard everybody on the broadcast sort of mention that not shocked she's out, but sort of surprised that it's first round and the way she went out. So first big upset there, and I'm with you. I'd like to see Carolina win, but I don't think I would pick her to win it.
Who are you picking?
I'm gonna pick Konta to win it.
All right.
And I would say her over Carolina in the championship.
Okay.
Other things to talk about real quick. We have been mentioning the team in WHL playing the U.S. women's national team. That was a final yesterday of 3-0. The national team beat the League All-Stars. They will play again tomorrow, and that'll cap their 2-game series. And then I'll start my fight for a cheap bid at the jersey auction.
You going for Jenny Ryan?
Yep, that's the plan.
All right.
That's the plan. I haven't set I don't know what my dollar amount will be. I've never done one of these for hockey, so we'll see what the market sets itself up.
All right.
One other thing to mention that I wanted to mention along the lines of hockey was this podcast. They have an Instagram account and a Twitter account, and it's this Women's Hockey Digest, and they're posting interviews of players in the league. I've gotten a chance to listen to a few clips of those episodes. Pretty interesting, good questions, more in detail about the league, and dives into life within the league. So if you ever have any time or want to hear from some of the top players, that's Women's Hockey Digest. Like I said, they have a Twitter and Instagram account, so you can check those out. Something to keep an eye on. And now getting into the NWSL, we will go over our mock drafts. Alyssa has prepared her first round mock. Just in the last few hours, I finished my full-round mock draft, so I have all 40 selections here in front of me. But around the mock draft, there are a few things that I want to hit on before we go into those picks, and a couple of these things affect the picks and what players we will use for these slots. First is talking about, actually, before we get into that, there's a question that we retweeted from our site that I'm not sure if you saw, but it's from the Women's Soccer Weekly, and they tweeted out 4 different options that you could choose on there, taking a poll of which of these has the best chance to happen. One of those options was that none of them happened, and the other 3 were potential trades, and one was Sydney Leroux to Orlando, Carly Lloyd to Sky Blue, and Kristen Press to Portland were the 3 options.
Oof.
Can you guess which one I chose?
Well, you better have picked Sydney Leroux.
Why is that?
Because I predicted it.
Which one of those was I saying happened last year?
Oh, Carly Lloyd.
Yep.
Yeah. I still don't know about that.
No?
I don't depends on who they go with in the draft, and what they need is defense, and then they need a lot. They need some
And
giving.
with just trading
Oh,
Andresina the last
right,
week.
right, and then Ojai was out this season, so hopefully she's back. Do you think she'll be ready for the beginning of the season?
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps out the attack side of things, and hopefully they probably get someone in the draft is my assumption, but first round definitely has to be defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dash with the 3rd pick in the first round.
Yeah.
So you're picking the Pugh trade. I mean, not Pugh trade, the LaRue trade.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly believe in that one. So, yes.
Okay, now we'll get into those individual player talk. And first thing I have on here is, and this is how I phrased it in the kind of what I sent you of what we're going to talk about, goalie overload.
Yeah.
So we have now heard that Casey Murphy will not be playing in the National Women's Soccer League. She will be going overseas. You said to France to me, right?
Yes.
So we've seen that. We've seen the retirement of a starting caliber goalie in the league, and that would have been Caroline Stanley. And we saw a Jennifer Gordon tweet about the only having 10 teams and the inability to expand hurting the future of goalkeeping from a national team standpoint. So putting all those things together and going over this mock draft where I try to go through each one of the teams and see what the team needs were. Right. And goalie isn't a need for any more than probably 2 teams.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And it's maybe a majority of the teams have 2 really good goalkeepers.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at now, where we see Casey Murphy going overseas.
Right.
She's a starting caliber goalie, but for her to even need to fight for a position.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was part of Jennifer Gordon's tweet, was that it was hindering, at least from, I guess, a U.S. standpoint for the national team. It was hindering keepers to go overseas, and that's kind of just always how it's been, is that keepers that go overseas, it's kind of rumors or things that she's heard along the way that their development isn't as rapid or isn't as good as it could have been if they would have been here, but there's no room for them here. So where are they supposed to go? Are you supposed to be, Casey Murphy, most top keeper if she would have been in this draft, a top keeper in the draft, most likely, but she's not. Is she starting somewhere? Probably not.
I'd say 2 places.
Okay, 2 places.
But those aren't winning teams, which is
right.
Not attractive.
Right. And you kind of saw it last year with Jane Campbell too, and Lydia Williams, and there was kind of a back and forth, and then Houston decided to stick with Jane and let Lydia go. So she came in having to fight for her position, which with someone of Lydia's stature, I guess, was a big feat for Jane to do. Whether that was the best thing for Houston to do, I don't know. Did I like it? Well, yes, because I like Jane, but was it the best thing? That's to see. Yeah, that's to see.
So that does take Murphy off the board. She was one of those goalies, just like Jane Campbell was last year. It's rare to see a goalie taken first round, but Murphy was sort of there on the borderline, especially as she comes out as a junior into the draft. Now she goes overseas. That takes her off the board. So we'll see. And in my mock draft, a slide in goalies. And I have 3 goalies taken overall. or completely in all 4 rounds. So we can talk about that more if you want to. The other thing that I wanted to talk about as far as individual players go involves Andi Sullivan, involves the #1 prospect in the draft from Stanford. All indications show that she's going to be the #1 pick, but she has yet to put her name into the hat for the draft. I'm not sure when the deadline is. Chris Henderson's tweet made it sound like it was the day of, I think is what he put in there. And he was calling for a change for that because it's very difficult to, promote the draft, to be able to understand the draft and have these types of conversations to get fans and the league hyped up for the draft, which has to have some sort of impact.
Yeah, I saw that one too, and I think you're correct, or at least, the way I read it was that it was day of, and I know that it was a little bit, it was kind of the same way, was it last year or 2 years ago with Pugh, and whether she was going to enter the draft, and there was some sort of rule change or something like that, kind of exception that, I don't know the whole story behind it, but I think it's just the fact that they can register essentially 9:30 before the draft starts is a little bit ridiculous. There should be a deadline for that. I mean, even if it's just a week before the draft or something, you would think that they would have some sort of deadline for that. I think it definitely hurts in the sense that they don't have one, because like you said, there's no hype behind it really if you don't have your top prospect.
And teams sort of scramble.
Right.
I mean, if she winds up not entering.
Right. That would be quite interesting if she didn't enter the draft.
So Andi Sullivan and Rachel Corbose, Georgetown, she has not entered her name either for the draft. What's your thought on strategy behind their part of this?
I guess I don't know as far as a strategy. Maybe leverage from teams overseas. If you're looking to go there, you can build up leverage with them and say, well, I could enter the draft the day of the draft, so you have till the day of the draft to offer me this or give me something more. So I think just for me, as far as strategy-wise goes, it's just leverage. But other than that, I guess I don't have anything that I can at least think of.
And I agree with that. I think that is the only strategy that can play out here. What I've read, Andi Sullivan does want to play here. She wants to play in this league. She wants to play for the Spirit, as opposed to Crystal Dunn, who wants to come back but doesn't want to be in Washington with the Spirit. Sullivan wants to play there, so which makes it
a little bit even more confusing.
Right. Maybe she just doesn't do her homework until the night before, and she's carrying that over to her professional life. But yeah, I'm not too sure. Corbose, her sister, is playing in the league now. So if that has anything to deal with, I wouldn't think it would, but that's odd for her to hold her name out.
Yeah, I think we kind of mentioned it with Andi just a little bit, or kind of referring to it of if she didn't want to play, if she had someone overseas that she wanted to play with or anything like that, maybe holding out to the very last second because of that. But I don't see that being the case for her.
And it'd be really nice if we had answers to these questions, right? If we had some sort of report or media source asking her questions, to ask her this on draft morning, as it will be, that would be, I would applaud that effort. I doubt we're going to get it, but maybe Allie, we'll have to send Allie Wagner an email and get her to ask that question. Yeah.
And I guess that we can send that to Allie or to Andi and to Quinn, because Quinn didn't register till 2 weeks ago? If that, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So what's going on?
Maybe what's the something that's holding them back, that they wanted to get it taken care of, but they didn't.
The only other thing that I can think of, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, is that Andi said that she wants to play for the Spirit. If she didn't want to play for the Spirit, What? Don't enter the draft. Go overseas,
Mm-hmm.
or just kind of hang out and train for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Is the only thing that I could think of as being the alternative as well as leverage, but that doesn't sound like anything, at least in her case.
Mm-hmm. For our mock drafts, we're gonna, I assume that Sullivan will enter the draft.
Yeah.
And that Corbeau's will enter the draft. And I guess so. I had started off with obviously going through and seeing what the team needs were, and I assume that's what you did for your first round picks as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really need to go through those in depth. We can just sort of go through the picks and see if they match up or what each of us think if we have any comments to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we might as well just run through our list. We can do each pick first. So first pick for me, I have the Spirit taking Indy Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
Same for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second pick, Boston Breakers. This player for me she's been sort of building her athleticism, her ability to play all over the field and impact the game in multiple ways. I think she can jump this high. I think she's going to be a first rounder, and I didn't expect that throughout the year, but now her name is kind of building steam and momentum, and I have her at second here, Gabby Seiler from Florida, the midfielder. I'm throwing her in there with Lavelle and Morgan Andrews. I have enough faith in their forwards, in Midge Purse, and then also with Leon up there. I think those two are efficient enough that just shore up the midfield, and that team can be better this year.
Mm-hmm. So I have that pick different, and I didn't want to put her this high, see? But I have McCaskill there.
Okay. And that is probably the majority pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you had an experts panel, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
It was safe.
And I guess, yes.
It was safe.
Right.
For me.
It's a safe pick, yeah.
It's my first mock draft. Safe pick in my mind.
Yep. Third pick, I'd be very shocked if we don't have the same player.
We do have the same player.
Okay, so Rebecca Quinn, defender from Duke, going to the Dash at number 3. Number 4, I have your number 2 here going to Sky Blue FC, the forward Savannah McCaskill from South Carolina.
And I have Souza from UCF, if I'm pronouncing that right. She's a midfielder.
Okay. Number 5 for me, another defender, Indigo Gibson from California, going to Sky Blue FC.
I was going between her and Jessie Scarpa. I went with Jessie Scarpa from UNC.
So she hasn't put her name in the hat yet either, right?
She didn't? I thought she did.
No. So there are a handful of players that I want to say. You said, who was your 4th pick or your 5th pick?
5th pick?
Yeah.
Scarpa.
Okay, then your 4th pick?
Souza.
Yeah, so I don't know if she's put her name in that either.
I don't think she has either, but I'm assuming that she will.
So I steered away from those, actually. I think there's a better chance that, and I kind of thought through who would put their names in still, and Corbeau's and Sullivan. As far as players who haven't entered yet, Sullivan and Corbeau's are the only 2 that I put in. So That's kind of nice in this mock draft experiment, because now we have excuses of why we can miss so many picks is because they haven't declared yet.
We're just assuming.
The 6th pick for me, Penn State and Indy Lion defender who's sort of fallen off from the echelon of these collegiate players, and that's Brittany Bessinger. I'm having her go to the Washington Spirit.
Okay. And I have her teammate, Franny Kraus.
Okay. I have her drafted too, but just a little bit later. 7 for me is Rachel Corboz going to the Chicago Red Stars to be Danny Colaprico Jr. in the midfield.
And I've got Indigo Gibson there.
Okay. Defense going to Chicago. Who you kicking off that back line? Or you think they're that good? I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Number 8 to Portland. Portland with back-to-back picks at number 8 and 9.
Okay.
From Duke, another defender, Skylar Debris. I have going to the Portland Thorns.
I've got Imani Dorsey.
Mm-hmm. So the other Duke Blue Devil, forward Imani Dorsey. The other Thorn pick that I have here in the first round is Claire Oates from SMU, a midfielder. Probably going to be seen as a reach, but I think has a lot of professional potential, and that's Claire Oates from SMU.
And I have Emma Chiavisto. Is that correct? FSU?
FSU?
Yeah.
Okay. To round out my top 10 in the first round, Claire Winter from UCLA, the midfielder.
And this is where I have Brittany Bassinger.
Okay. So you got two Nittany Lions going first round.
Mm-hmm.
And is that as much predicting as you did for the draft? Any other picks or players that you looked at that were in consideration that you think will go second round or make an impact on teams?
First round is pretty much all that I had gotten to.
That's, yeah. I didn't ask me or anything more, so that's fine. Now, I'll just go through. So other players that you had mentioned, Imani Dorsey, I did have as the first pick in the second round going to the Spirit. So forward from Duke there. Other players that you had mentioned that I had said in the first round. So I guess just Franny Krause, Penn State. I have her in the 4th round, 38th pick overall to the NC Courage. A couple other players on here that I wanted to mention. I had told you before we started the podcast that I had my next Aaron Smith prediction ready.
Yeah.
And I'm actually staying with the same team on the same back line with this next prediction. But I didn't tweet about in the season, so it doesn't really count. But I do feel like Morgan Reed would be a good addition to that back line in Houston, and another Duke defender. So I have 3 Duke defenders: Debris, Reed, and then where's my other one at? Oh, and then Rebecca Quinn, obviously. So 2 in the first round, and then Morgan Reed in the 3rd round at the 28th overall pick. So I feel good about this mock draft.
How long did it take you?
It took me probably 2.5 hours. I said I have 3 goalies. First goalie, Emily Boyd, California. Okay. I have her going 21st overall to the Spirit. And then my next goalie comes in the 4th round, number 34 overall, to the new team, to Salt Lake. EJ Proctor from Duke, their goalie. And then in the 37th overall pick, I have the Red Stars picking Caitlin Clem from Wisconsin. So, and that's another team. They have Red Stars have 7 picks. So if they use all of them, I would think they're picking 1 goalie, and that's the last pick that I have them picking Clem.
Yeah.
And they do have Alyssa Nair, but they also have Michelle Dalton, who's a reliable backup. But at some point, both those goalies are not getting any younger, as I say, right? So bringing Clem in and hopefully finding her a spot on the roster to keep her on the team whenever she's needed, I think would be a great move, and one that I could see a Rory Dames and that Red Star front office making.
Yeah.
There's 2 UCF players that I'm interested in seeing if they get taken. Morgan Ferreira and Kayla Adamick. I have them going 3rd and 4th round. UCF had a really good season, so it'll be interesting to see if those 2 get get selected for our forward and Adamek midfielder. And you will be watching Thursday, or you won't?
I should be able to.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? So Orlando only has one pick, and
Yep.
it comes in the third round.
Yep.
Did you mess around and look at their roster to see what their team's needs were, or?
In terms of that, yes, but I did that more so last week when I was working with the Sidney Leroux trade to Orlando. Mm-hmm. And it depends on who they would give up for Leroux. Do you know what I'm saying? If they give up, if it's not kind of a forward for a forward trade, which I have a feeling it might be, I would probably pick a midfielder.
Midfield?
Yeah. Possibly back line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the draft will be next Thursday at 10 o'clock a.m. YouTube will have it, NWSL.com will have it, and Lifetime will not have it. Yep. So it was also another Henderson tweet from today.
Yeah, which is a very solid point by him too.
Yep. Yeah, the fact that this is the sort of the one chance outside of the season for Lifetime to have something broadcasted that can build some momentum going into the season and kind of wake the fans up about the NWSL and have them tune in.
Would you think
it would? 10 o'clock time slot too.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do you think it would be better if it was in prime time? Not necessarily saying that Lifetime would carry it, but that more people would be able to tune in. Yeah. Or is that not?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that would be another good question to have somebody asked somewhere along the line at the draft. You know, what are we doing here at 10 a.m.?
Yeah.
As opposed to later in the day.
Right.
To see what kind of answer that comes from. I mean, it could be something like where they're holding the draft at, something like that. But
right.
Nice to know.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to touch on briefly?
No, I think we covered everything that I wanted to talk about.
Okay. Well, then Thursday, so the draft will happen. The draft will be over. I'll be in Chicago, but I hope to take my laptop and have my Wi-Fi hooked up to the hotel I stay at. So I'm going to try to be able to do an episode. Mm-hmm. So if we do, we'll try to keep on schedule and be on around 10 o'clock, and we'll recap the draft, go over a few different things about what we thought about it, and maybe go over like the best in class of who players we expect to make an impact on their team right away. So that'll be Thursday. That'll be Thursday evening. And that'll be it for tonight. So I guess we'll see you next Thursday. And thank you for stopping by the Hera Press Box.